Hello. Today we're going to talk about creativity in language teaching. Creativity, what is that and how does it affect the way we teach? Let's start with what creativity is. It's usually described as being able to solve problems in original ways, as being able to see new meanings and relationships in things and to make connections between things. It also refers to the ability to have original and imaginative thoughts and ideas about something. Also, perhaps to use imagination and past experience to create new learning possibilities. Now, in teaching, there's two ways of thinking about creativity, either as a product or as a process. When it's viewed as a product, the focus could be on a particular class, a task, or an activity in a book, or a piece of student writing. And then we might ask, what are the features that give this a creative dimension? When we view creativity as a process, the focus is on thinking processes and decisions that a person makes use of in producing something that we would describe as creative. So both product and process are important dimensions to our understanding of creativity. Now, all teaching, of course, involves being creative, and teachers are often required to think creatively or to think out of the box, both while planning their teaching and during the teaching process itself. Teachers draw on specialist kinds of thinking on which creativity is a core dimension. They draw on cognitive skills that enable them to choose relevant goals and teaching resources, to analyze materials in order to identify their teaching potential, and to make decisions related to timing, to grouping, sequencing, and assessment. Of course, during the teaching process itself, teachers may adapt their plans in response to feedback from learners. So in making decisions of this kind, teachers draw on their subject matter knowledge, what they know about teaching, their personal theories and principles, as well as the practical knowledge that they've developed from their teaching experience. So I would suggest that the ability to think creatively is an important component of this activity of transformation. Creativity has also been linked to levels of attainment in second language learning, and many of the tasks favored in contemporary teaching methods are believed to release creativity in learners, particularly those involving student-centered, interaction-based, and open-ended elements. Such activities, therefore, in principle, are ideally suited to foster creative thinking and behavior on the part of learners. In this talk, I want to describe principles that support creative teaching, and I'm going to do so by drawing on observations and conversations I've had with teachers in a number of different contexts. The first principle I would suggest is that the teacher is not committed to a single approach or method. Typically, rather than being bound to a particular method, creative teachers often adopt an approach that might be called principled eclecticism. In other words, they don't choose methods and procedures at random, but according to the needs of their class. They use a wide variety of teaching approaches and a wide range of resources. Another principle, I think, is that the creative teacher makes use of a wide range of teaching strategies and techniques. In fact, creativity in teaching means having a wide repertoire of routines and strategies which teachers can call upon, as well as the ability or the willingness to depart from established procedures when necessary and to use one's own solutions. Of course, in general, I think novice teachers are much less likely to be creative than experienced teachers because they are familiar with fewer strategies and techniques. The danger is that once a teacher becomes comfortable in using a core set of techniques and strategies, these become fixed. Another principle, I think, that supports creative teaching is that the teacher draws on academic and pedagogical knowledge to support creative practice. Another principle is that the teacher draws on academic and pedagogical knowledge to support creative practice. In other words, creative teachers know things. They know things about their subject matter. I think it's also important to distinguish between purposeful and purposeless creativity. Now, purposeless activity could be seen in acts of creativity that are designed simply to entertain or to fill in gaps in the lesson or to substitute for a well-planned lesson. On the other hand, purposeful creativity is linked to the teacher's knowledge base, to his or her academic and pedagogical knowledge, as well as to the goals of the lesson. So the teacher draws on this as a reference in developing creative lessons. So having a solid knowledge base means that the teacher has a rationale and purpose for the creative activities he or she uses. They've not been chosen merely for their novelty value, but because they reflect the teacher's knowledge and understanding of teaching and learning. I think also creative teachers use activities which have creative dimensions. And teaching creatively means looking at activities, assessing them, and looking at materials for their potential to support creative teaching. What are some of these dimensions of creative activities and materials? Well, first, they involve some sort of challenge, tasks in which learners solve problems. They discover something, they overcome obstacles, or they have to find information. Of course, creative tasks also are built around interesting content, topics that students already find interesting and that they want to read about or talk about out of class, such as stories we find about sports and entertainment personalities or things we find on YouTube and the internet. Another feature of creative activities is that they involve a personal element, activities that make connections to the learner's lives and concerns. Perhaps also an important strand of creative activities is they involve some sort of novelty, aspects of an activity that are new or different or totally unexpected. They may also involve an element of intrigue, tasks that involve ambiguity, that are problematic, situations that are paradoxical, controversial, contradictory, or incongruous. These can also stimulate curiosity. I think also that creative tasks give students a personal choice. For example, students can choose their own topics to write about in an essay, or choose their own topics for a group discussion tasks. Another feature of creative tasks is that they encourage risk-taking. They don't want students to be so worried about making mistakes that they feel reluctant to take part in activities. So they're tasks in which students are rewarded for effort, not only for success. I think also tasks that involve original thought or that require an original response. So, for example, instead of comprehension questions after a reading passage that test recall, creative tasks encourage a personal and individual response to what the student has read. Creative tasks might also sometimes involve a fantasy element, giving learners a chance to use their imagination for creating make-believe stories or identifying with fictional characters or even acting out imaginary situations. Another mark of a creative teacher is that he or she seeks to achieve an individual teaching style, looking for original ways of using the textbook and teaching materials and creating lessons that reflect this individual approach to teaching. So, for this reason, creative teachers might be very different from each other. Risk-taking is also an important feature of a creative teacher, willing to take risks, willing to experiment, to innovate. And risk-taking reflects this flexible mindset that we find in creative teachers, as well as their self-confidence, I guess. They're willing to try things out, even if at times they may not work out quite the way they intended. So the creative teacher is confident and willing to make his or her own decisions about how to manage classes. I think confidence can give the teacher a sense that he or she is in control of the classroom and that it's the teacher, not the book or the curriculum, that can make a difference. The teacher sees his or her input to the lesson as being decisive and so has a sense of personal responsibility for how well learners learn. Another principle, I think, is that the teacher adjusts and modifies his or her teaching during the lesson. They're flexible. Flexibility is another feature then that we can observe in the lessons of creative teaching. And this means being able to switch between different styles and modes of teaching during the lesson, for example, if necessary, changing the pace of the lesson and giving more space and time to learners. So this can be viewed as a kind of skilled improvisation. So those are some of the core principles or features, I think, of creative teaching. Let's now move to how creative teaching can be supported in the school or in the institution. Of course, one approach you sometimes find is that there's no real institutional support. That is left over to the individual teacher, and that perhaps the school has other concerns and is more interested in how well students perform on national exams or how well they use technology and so on. But commitment to creative teaching in a school requires a change in mindset. An institution that believes in the value of creative teaching, I think, expresses confidence in its teachers, and it encourages adaptation and innovation. It's open to new ideas and supports, encourages, and rewards creative teaching. Here are some ways in which institutions can encourage rather than discourage creative teaching. First of all, I think the institution needs to help teachers recognize and share what's creative in their own practice. They are usually creative and innovative teachers in every school, but often their teaching skills are not necessarily recognized by or familiar to others in the school. Another feature, I think, of the institutional support that can be provided is to encourage creative partnerships. So teachers are often most creative when they get the support and encouragement of others, and this can be achieved in a number of different ways, for example, through team teaching, through peer observation, or through shared lesson planning. I think also the institution needs to provide resources to support creative teaching. If teachers want to develop creative teaching resources to support their teaching, they need access to a good resource center with up-to-date books, journals, magazines, computers, technology, whiteboards, and so on. So an environment and culture that encourages creativity and which provides the resources teachers need in order to realize their creative potential is a key component of the creative capital needed to support creativity. And I think also the school should reward or create rewards for creative teachers. A school can acknowledge the value of creative teachers by recognizing their contributions in different ways. For example, by acknowledging their achievements in an in-house newsletter or report when appropriate, or by giving them opportunities to mentor novice teachers, or by encouraging them to share their ideas with others by speaking at brown bag lunch sessions or giving seminars or workshops, or maybe leading a discussion in a staff meeting. So today I focused just on one aspect of teaching, and there, of course, are many other important dimensions to effective teaching. But by adding the concept of creative teaching to our understanding of what it means to be an effective language teacher, there are benefits for teachers, for learners, and for institutions. Creative teaching helps learners develop their capacities for original ideas and for creative thinking. It also improves the quality of their learning experiences and can help them develop increased levels of motivation and even self-esteem. For the teacher, too, it provides a source of ongoing professional renewal and satisfaction, since when teachers are engaged, motivated, and successful, teaching is motivating for all concerned. For the institution, it can lead to increased levels of satisfaction for both teachers and students, as well as contribute to the quality, effectiveness, and reputation of the school. So creative learners need creative teachers, and teachers need to work in institutions where creativity is valued and shared.